I'm an alcoholic. My name is Pete. I've had experience with these steps the way they're laid out in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with the help of my Big Book Step Study sponsor, excuse me, a loving God who has revealed to me through this work. I am currently finishing up my amends. I still have a couple that I've been unable to locate. I know where they are, but circumstances do not permit me from approaching them. But I remain willing and ready to make those amends when the time comes. And I try on a daily basis to work steps 10, 11, and 12. And really the principles of all these steps, there's principles connected to each one, which I didn't know. And you're going to hear me say that a lot this morning. I didn't know. But I try to work the principles, to the best of my ability and my willingness. My willingness is a big part of it. Some days are better than others. This is kind of a new thing for me. It's like complete honesty. And I have to be totally honest with you. At first when I came in, the room was kind of empty. And the old ego. And then when it started to fill up, I said, okay, this is good. Complete honesty here, transparent. It's like, the inner workings here. Usually that's a pretty scary place. But I'm going to share it with you. Thank you, Denise, for asking me to come down. It's been a little while since I've been here, but it's an honor to me. It's an honor, and it's really really in an honest way. It's very humbling to be asked to share Big Book Step Study because I didn't think I had anything to offer, and as my sponsor tells me, the only thing I can share is my experience, and that's what I hope to share with you this morning. There we go. I'm getting better. Share with you this morning. And I pray, we're talking about prayer and meditation in Step 11. And just prior to the meeting and even driving down, I'm praying that, I be taken out of the way. I'm pushed off to the side. This isn't about me. This is an alcoholic like so many. I had such a raging ego. It wouldn't have fit in this hall, much less this church. It wouldn't have fit. And I always like to do when there's so much in today's reading, and I always like to go back to the way the step was originally written in the short form. It says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only knowledge for His will and the power to carry that out. And for me, one of the key words there is improve. Because what that's telling me is that I've already established some conscious contact with a power greater than myself. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but it mentions that when we get into Step 12. The whole purpose of my doing these steps was to have a spiritual awakening or spiritual experience or a psychic change. And again, I'll say, I had no idea what this was all about. I originally thought that my only purpose was not to drink. And in my history, I got sober the first time around February 6, 1982. I say the first time. My second recovery date, my second sobriety date is November 3rd, 2010. Okay, we've got about 28 years there. 18 years of those were sober, not drinking, going to AA, doing exactly what I thought I needed to do. And life was better because I wasn't drinking, so there was that out of the equation. But I was miserable. I didn't understand. Here it is again. I didn't know that I was living with untreated alcoholism. Okay, I didn't understand that really what it is that I have a spiritual malady that requires a spiritual solution. I thought my problem was alcohol. I thought it was alcohol. I just drank too much, or I drank at the wrong times, or both, which was usually the case. And so I didn't realize that I needed this spiritual solution. And it mentions it back in the doctor's opinion about the psychic change. And then it mentions it goes further into explanation in the Appendix 2, the spiritual experience. And I like the definition because that's something I could understand. It told me that spiritual to psychic change, or the spiritual experience or spiritual awakening, because I had no idea what that meant. The definition there was that it's a change in my personality sufficient to bring about my recovery from alcoholism. Well, I know now that change in my personality isn't going to come from me. I'm not the guy. I'm the last person, that could do that for myself. It had to come from a source outside of myself. Prior to doing this work, I had abandoned the faith of my parents a long time ago. There was no room in my life or in my heart for any higher power other than me, because I felt I was the only person that needed to be there. I was in charge. I took care of things. I lived by the adage growing up, if you get yourself into this, you get yourself out. And I believed that, and that's how I lived my life. Ask for help? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so as a result of this work, and again, it's a gradual process, and thank goodness for me that I'm having one of those educational variety spiritual experiences. Because initially when I read this, I thought, oh boy, there it is. I missed it. I missed it. And that's I felt that was the story of my life. But this is one of those educational type of spiritual experience, and it continues to happen every day. But it happened as a result of this work, because I needed to find out what the real problem was. Okay, and that my problem wasn't alcohol. The problem was me. Okay, I know now that alcohol was in fact my original solution to dealing with me and being able to just put up with me, because I kept thinking that was my solution, and the problem is that after a while, that solution stopped working. But, the alcoholic that I am, I kept drinking, thinking that it would work. It had to work, because that's all I had. Okay, and as a result, I continued to drink, and I became an alcoholic. Okay? And then when I did stop, and I removed my original solution, I removed alcohol from the equation. Okay, as they say, I removed alcohol. The ism was still there. Okay, the alcoholic. I've removed the alcohol. Well, the ick is still there, and it is. All of this stuff, which then, as I found out in my inventory work, not to get ahead of myself, but to even going through it with my sponsor, again, in the doctor's opinion, it tells me that I need a spiritual solution. And then we got into step 2 and 3, okay, and I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I remember saying to my sponsor, I kind of almost raised my hand. I said, he said, I said, I've got an issue with this God thing. And he said, it says here, do you believe, are you willing to believe? And I said, yeah, I'm willing to believe. I'll consider the possibility. That's where I was. Again, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I was the biggest skeptic. I think that, maybe not the biggest, but the biggest one I knew coming in doing this work. I was terrified. Okay, I believed that it could work for any one of you, each and every one of you, but I was terrified that it wasn't going to work for me. I was absolutely terrified that it wasn't going to work for me, and I knew where I was headed, because I'd been down that road before, and it gets dark and it gets ugly. and it doesn't end well. And so I remember doing my 3rd step prayer with my sponsor. It was in a church. We're doing it, and on our knees, holding hands with another man, which, a little bit out of my comfort zone. I just have like this bubble anyway with anybody, and of course he read it, and I had to, he memorized it, of course, he knew it, and I read it. And I didn't, I said, okay, I'll do this because I'm supposed to do it, and I'm going to follow the directions. And as we did it, as we finished the 3rd step prayer, I started to cry. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And that was the first ripple that I felt, that there was something happening here that was so profound that was so much bigger than I could ever imagine. And I did the writing, followed his directions, started uncovering, basically what the problem was. And I looked and answered the questions, and I did the turnarounds, and I did the fears inventory, and I did my sex conduct, all of that stuff. And it really revealed to me what the problem was and what the problem with me was. And if I didn't fix that, if I didn't change that, I'd say change it. I didn't fix it. If I wasn't willing to change that, then there was no hope for me. I was doomed. I was doomed. It talks about being, the option of being doomed to either living a spiritual life or choosing a spiritual path or be doomed to an alcoholic death. And as a good alcoholic, I'd say, well, how much doom are we talking here? No, really. I mean, how bad is this going to get? Because, I can put up with an awful lot. I have. We're survivors. We really are. We get knocked down. We just keep pulling ourselves back up, and we're survivors. It's like, well, just how bad is this going to get? And so then after I did all that writing, and I had open heart surgery in the midst of it, but anyway, but then I read my fifth step with my sponsor. And when we finally finished reading the fifth, and of course there was nothing there that he hadn't seen before. And I didn't. I listed everything. I listed the going to the grave stuff, absolutely everything. I said, I'm in. What have I got to lose? If I don't do this 100%, if I don't do this honestly and completely, I know, because I know from my past, because after that 18 years of being sober, I drank again for another 10 years. Okay? Because I went back to my original solution. 18 years of living with untreated alcoholism, I picked up again because it was either that or put a bullet in my head. And that's where I was. And so I picked up the drink. And then I got back to the point of wanting to take my own life again after the 10 years. And so I needed to, so after I did all of this reading with him and we finished, for the first time in my life, I had no secrets. Not a one. Not one. Someone else had heard everything. And God had heard everything. Now, when I use the word God, I kind of use that as a placeholder because I'll get into that a little later, but it wasn't the God of my upbringing. It wasn't my impression or idea of what it was going to be. And so then, through 6 and 7, asked for these defects of character to be removed. Humbly asked, and then I'd become willing first and humbly asked. And again, all of this whole process, going from, kneeling down, doing the third step prayer, and doing the writing, in black ink, okay? I wasn't going to argue. I said, okay, that's what you want me to do, I'll do it. To me, it was an idea just that I would become willing to follow directions and I would be willing to change, okay? Never mind what I thought or what I felt. I was just going to do this. And I said, I'm not going to try. I'm just going to go with it. And so after 6 and 7, and then I started doing my amends, clearing up the wreckage of the past. And again, I know the importance of that because I believe all of these things, the things in my fourth step inventory, the harms that I had caused others, all of these things, the resentment, the anger, the fears were a big part of it. These were all the things that ambushed me after 18 years. Okay, because I hadn't done anything. I just stopped drinking. I hadn't done anything else. I hadn't done anything else, and it ambushed me after 18 years. Okay, so I know firsthand if I don't do this as thoroughly as I can, and even if I don't do it completely thoroughly, I have an opportunity. I can go back and I can keep working at this. This, when they say that writing, keep on writing, it'll end. It changes. It's not the same intensity. I often on my 10th step, I will do, if I have to write something out, I'll write it out. Talk to my sponsor. I have other men that I share 10 steps with. So that these things don't accumulate again, don't build up because, as long as I rest and I take it easy, my disease, my ego, My ego is rebuilding itself. So then we're at step 11, and saw through prayer and meditation. I've done prayer and meditation when Denise said you have some experience with that, and I said, yeah, I guess I do. To improve my conscious contact, what I find is so important is that I do it now, and for a long time I didn't do it on a daily basis. Again, I'm being completely honest. Quality of my life, it's okay. But so I have a practice now, a daily practice. And I had an opportunity. I'd been searching my whole life, been seeking my whole life for something. And I wasn't sure what it was. I knew there was something missing in my life. And the work in Big Book Step Study really was the groundwork for that, really was the foundation for that, because it really, I was talking with Denise earlier about, it got me to a point where now I'm able to really expand myself spiritually, emotionally. I am becoming the person that I originally was. Okay, before all this stuff happened, all this stuff accumulated, all this stuff started to glom onto me and hang on, and I was encased with this stuff around. My heart was encased with all of this, and it couldn't feel. It didn't feel. I could pretend. I was a pretty good actor. I could be whatever he wanted me to be. One of my survival techniques. But my heart was encased with this. All of this darkness and this resentment and anger and fear and all this stuff, And my life was pretty dark. Pretty dark. I could put on a smile and make it look good. I wanted to make sure it looked good on the outside. But boy, it was dark. It was dark. And now, as a result of this work, this has been cleared away. And I have to continue to work at that on a daily basis. Because life happens. Life happens, and we interact with people, and we do, stuff happens. It just happens. And so I have to be aware and be careful. I have to maintain my spiritual condition so that doesn't start to build up again. And I know when it starts. I can tell. Because all of these things, they may sound a little different. They may look a little different or whatever, the fear or the anger, the resentment, whatever. But, they feel the same. They feel exactly the same way that they used to. And so with this, and I thought I had a pretty good thing. I was doing some prayers and I was doing stuff like that. And then recently, my wife and I have been going through some issues at home. I was talking with Denise about it earlier, and I'll share it with you. A lot of this was childhood stuff that each of us had. We're both kind of wounded children. I think we're all wounded. That's just my thought. And so we're dealing with this stuff now. And we've been taking some time and space apart and going, seeking other, modality, I guess the word is modality, other means of help. And one of the things I went to is I've been to a couple of retreats, Buddhist retreats. And I went to the first one, and it was profound. And then I went to another one just the end of August, a week-long retreat. And actually it was a healing ritual, and that was 3 days, and then I had another part of it was another 3 days. And people asked me, people that knew me, they said, well, what was it like? And I said, I really can't describe it, but I said it was profound. There's been such an incredible shift in me, in my heart, and in there's been an expansion, an opening, I think, of my spiritual condition, which I never had before, never imagined. I had no idea what I was getting into when I went there. I had no idea. I had no expectations. I was hoping it would help a little, but it's put me on an entirely different path. And I realized at the time, this is what I've been seeking my entire life. This is what I've been looking for. And so this is part of my daily practice. And it can be whatever you want it to be. You know, we talk about God. And again, okay, this is my opinion. I'm not supposed to give you my opinion, but my feeling is that we can name it whatever we want to name it, but I believe it's all the same. It's all the same. And if I need any other proof, it's just, I come into a room like this, and I see a room full of miracles. Here we are Saturday morning, a bunch of alcoholics in a church basement. I wouldn't even be conscious at this time. But there's a room full of miracles here. There's something that happens in these meetings, and there's something, especially, I believe, that happens with this work. The instructions are here. They're here. And this is such a gift. This is such an amazing gift. I just had to be willing to see it. And I believe that miracles happen every day around us. I just have to have my eyes open and see them. They're there. They're there. Things get pretty dark and pretty depressing. I don't watch the news anymore. No, I don't. I want to do as much as I can. It's interesting in the reading today, again, from the work I've been doing and the continued work I've been doing, is that it talks about how we... let me find it here. Of course, I always thought that this should be rewritten, because I thought these parts of step 11 should be in step 10. But what do I know? I said, they got this all wrong. But no, I know they don't. But the idea that I don't ask for anything that's selfish, anything that's just for me. And that goes along with the teachings that I have. I have a teacher now, Lama Bigmar, is that everything I do, he calls it selfish compassion. He said, you may do something that's good for you, that you enjoy, and that, but ultimately it will benefit others. Because if I'm doing something that's good for me, I'm taking care of myself, or I'm eating well, or and that if I'm in a better mood, and that it's going to ripple out there. It will ultimately benefit others. And really everything that I'm supposed to do is to benefit others, because we're all in this together. We're all in it together. We're all the same. We're all connected. We're no different. None of us are any different than anybody else. We're all the same. And having this whole shift, because I was a pretty selfish guy. I really was. It was me. I was number one. That was it. And, and so when I read this, and these are, again, like such great instructions here, about reviewing our day. and again, I think there are 10 questions there. So I really have to look at that. What could I have done better, and what were I thinking about myself, doing what I could do for others, and really helps me clear the deck so this stuff doesn't accumulate. And then in the morning, upon awakening, it doesn't say after a couple of cups of coffee. It doesn't say, sometime later in the morning, or, when I happen to think about it. We think about the 24 hours ahead, and we consider our plans. And we ask God of your understanding, to direct our thinking, especially asking to be divorced. Now, divorce is a very powerful word. Divorce from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. And I smart guy that I am, I finally, after umpteen years, looked up the definition of divorced. Because I figured, I knew what that was. I've been there. And it's to make or keep separate. And I said, that makes a lot of sense, because all of this negative stuff, if I can keep the self-pity and the dishonest and self-seeking motives separate from myself, I'm probably going to have a better day, and the people around me are going to have a better day. And then, again, I love these directions. For this alcoholic, they're about as simple as they can get, and they have to be. We talk about that, we may not be able to determine which course of action to take, and we ask God for inspiration, thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. What a concept. He's sort of a type A person here. It's like, take it easy? No. My thing, when my life was unmanageable, my solution to the unmanageability of my life was just to try harder. It's because I wasn't trying hard enough. That's why it was unmanageable. Okay. And then we're surprised how the right answer comes. And my feeling is that now that, it talks about us later on, it talks about, whenever as we go through our day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. What do you mean? We don't just plow ahead? We don't just bull our way through it? That's the way I always did before, But we pause when agitated or doubtful. I love that, the pause. My feeling now is that space between my thoughts. So when I pause, and it can be just a matter of seconds, or it could be an hour meditation. But that pause between my thoughts is where I'm going to find God. That's where I'm going to be able to hear God. Because otherwise I'm just so busy. My monkey mind is like going crazy. It's just spinning. As my sponsor would say, oh, there you are, you're scripting again, or you're choreographing again. And I would, as a good alcoholic boy, any possible scenario, I'd pull that off the shelf ready to go. Of course, it drove me nuts, but that was the way I dealt with things. But to pause and ask for help, or ask for that right decision or that right thought, is such an incredible concept. Then it gives me the rest of the instruction, because then when I pause, we do a simple prayer. And I think sometimes a prayer doesn't have to be anything that we know formally. I think it can be spontaneous. I think a prayer can be as simple as thank you. It doesn't have to be out loud. I think it's here. Or help, or please. I think it could be as simple as that. As my teacher would tell me, it's the intention. The intention is what's important. Okay. Just pausing and asking, or even thinking, what should I do now? Okay, that's a prayer. For me, that's a prayer. Because it tells me that I'm in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. Well, who, me? And that's the thing too, to be completely like, this is a work in progress. I just know that things are so much better than they used to be, because I'm so much better than I used to be. And that wouldn't have happened without this conscious contact with my higher power. And as I said, the higher powers had many different names, in my life. And even all those times that I thought I was on my own, I wasn't. I know that now. I wasn't. That my higher power is there with me. He talks about that he takes care of fools and drunks, and I was both. I know that now. I'm just so grateful to be here today. And I want to thank you all for putting up with me. And but I believe that this can be whatever you want it to be. Whatever you believe it is. I think as long as we have that willingness and we're open, because what's happened now is my heart is open. My heart's open and my mind. I think now I have an open mind, a grateful heart. And I am so eternally grateful for this program, for Alcoholics Anonymous, for Big Book Step Study, for the Big Book, for meetings like this and people like you. You're my tribe. I've gone to Big Book meetings in a lot of different places, and it is pretty neat stuff. And and the gift is here. The gift is here if you want it. No one can do it for you, but it's all there. It's all there, and it's all spelled out. So if you're doing this work, if you're writing, please keep writing. Don't stop. It's like spiritual surgery. You don't want to just jump off the table and say, "Oh, I'm fine, Doc." it may not work out so well. But if you're interested in doing this and you think of, find someone, a sponsor who's done the work, because I know the importance of that now, because my mind is a dangerous place for me to go alone. It's a neighborhood I've been mugged in many times, and so I needed a sponsor to guide me through. And if you're here, keep coming back, and I bless you all.